Today's episode is about how much emotional work goes into coordination, agreement, and keeping the peace. We start with a you're not crazy but and social planning. Why can making plans feel so exhausting, even when the event itself ends up being fun? Why do some people want to back out right up until the moment, but they're glad that they went? We talk about the anticipatory stress, decision fatigue, obligation, and the gap between imagining an activity and actually being in it. Then, in the AITA, an ex-wife asks an ex-husband to split the cost of a gift for their child, but the gift will only be used at her house. He says no and wonders whether that makes him the asshole or not. It turns into a conversation about fairness, co-parenting, after separation, and how easily practical questions get tangled up with symbolism, resentment, and what counts as generous. And finally, leadership lie. We take on a familiar assumption. If everyone agrees quickly, then everything's fine, right? Usually it doesn't. Quick agreement can mean avoidance, hierarchy, confusion, or fear. It can mean people are protecting harmony instead of contributing honestly. 3 segments, 1 thread. Smooth on the surface does not always mean settled underneath. Let's get into it. It's time once again for You're Not Crazy But, where we take a weirdly common habit that I tend to think smart adults have, but sometimes beat themselves up about. Sometimes asking questions like, why am I like this? And would it be easier to change? And all of these kind of things. So anyway, the topic today is I want to talk about that moment before social plans where your whole body sometimes votes no. And then you have this fear of like canceling and how the canceling builds anxiety, but you also feel a sense of relief that you're not doing this thing. So anyway, I guess a lot of people I think label this as like being flaky or antisocial, right? Where you like overcommit and you cancel sometimes and people aren't sure what to do with it. I think it can also be something maybe more practical, like your nervous system doing kind of a budget check. And I'm just kind of wondering if you can help us translate this into something that people can use when it comes up. And essentially, really what I'm asking is the difference between healthy pacing and avoidance and how someone can kind of tell which they're doing, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. And it's funny because as you're describing this, I have this often. However, and when I see this in a lot of clients, like that question of is this healthy pacing or is this anxiety is an important question. So I'm going to speak for me. Um, every Sunday night around 5:15, I think I don't want to go curling tonight because I'm on a curling team. And by the way, we're at the tail end. This is being recorded at the tail end of the 2 weeks of every 4 years when curling is the most popular sport in the world, and then everyone forgets about it. We here in Minnesota keep on curling, even after the Winter Olympics is over. Um, but I often find myself going, "Oh, I don't want to go there. I don't want to get it. It's just going to be a thing." I don't want to. And I find that I'm just not wanting it, and um, I remind myself, or I'm reminded by the other adult that with whom I share this home, that I love it when I go. And then I go, and the moment I get there, it's wonderful and joyful and amazing and terrific, and we lose most of the time. Um, so that for me, in the moment, I have recognized is almost always anxiety based. And with anxiety based, we treat that different than overwhelmed based kind of avoidance. And Gail, where are you on this issue? Maybe not personally, but where do you see that difference between anxiety based and overwhelmed? I need to
Like, you
cancel.
know
There's too
me.
much going on. Yeah.
I mean, right. So, when I heard Michael describing this about whether or not this is anxiety or avoidance, I think avoidance we assume, and I think as psychologists we jump on like, oh, avoidance is bad. I don't know that it is. I mean, I think avoidance can be bad. I think avoidance can be nervous system regulation. I think you have to know who you are and how you find yourself getting energized and in what
Right.
situations you get energized. It's the budget check, right? And where have I been withdrawing from my tank? So, as a person who really does become energized in social situations, I generally don't experience this unless it's like something really new and out of my comfort zone, right? I met a colleague for a networking thing at a restaurant yesterday, and I mean I didn't go, oh, can I opt out of this? I was like, oh, I've never sat down with this person in a social setting before. I'm looking forward to it. Well, it doesn't, that doesn't happen for me very often, but you schedule a meeting with someone executive titled something, and I've never done that before. And like those butterflies hit, right? Like
Right.
that's where I will feel that dread and that drag personally.
Yeah.
But to your point, Dan, then that's anxiety.
Right. And the question I like to ask, because avoidance
Hmm.
is a neutral term. Are you,
It should be.
the question is, are you avoiding it? Here's a question I ask a lot of times with folks who talk about social situations.
Wait. Can I just say one thing about
Yeah,
why
yeah, yeah,
avoidance
of
is
course.
neutral,
Okay, please.
right? Because we do this all the time.
Yeah.
I drove to the place yesterday. I avoided a crash,
Yeah,
right? Like
fair.
avoidance is neutral. That's the
Right,
point I wanted to make. Please
right.
go on.
Excellent point. Excellent point. So I will, you're getting ready to go to, or you're invited to a work party,
Yes,
and you're sitting back and you're thinking about avoiding it, skipping it, etc. Is this good or bad? Well, it depends on the underlying thought causing you to avoid it.
exactly.
I'm avoiding it because I am really afraid I'm going to say something stupid. I'm afraid people are going to look at me funny. They're going to judge me, and like I'm just feeling too anxious to go. I want to work with that person to deal with that anxiety, reduce the anxiety, and be able to go anyway.
And that
On the
is going
other,
to be
on the
done
other,
with creating accurate perceptions
yeah,
and
absolutely,
assumptions instead of
yeah,
inaccurate ones. Yeah,
right. On the other hand, if they're like, I don't like these sons of bitches all day long, and I don't want to be, I barely can tolerate them at work. I certainly don't want to go have a drink and a burger with them. Like
right.
in that case, avoidance is fine. So we're really looking at the
But
underlying
that would be
reasons.
spurred on by a different emotion. That emotion
Yes.
wouldn't be anxiety. That would be
No.
dread
It'd be dread or
or
annoyance or
distaste or
frustration
yeah,
or right,
yeah.
whatever. So we want to really say, what is the cause of your avoidance? Is the cause of your avoidance anxiety and then we overcome it? Or is the cause of your avoidance you really just don't want to do it?
I
In
think I
which
would
case you
add to
might
that
choose
though.
to not do it. Yeah,
I would also say, what would the outcome be if you didn't go?
fair.
Maybe you don't like those sons of bitches, but if you don't go, it costs you potentially your quarterly bonus because you
Yeah.
don't have the networking, et cetera, that's happening. Like there are some outcomes that sometimes, especially in these
Sure.
business situations, there's a monetary something that can be tied to it, even just your perception of, being a team player. So I think you
Right.
got to look at each situation
Absolutely.
specifically and think about the intention, which is what you're getting to. What is the intent here for the avoidance? And if
And
it
getting
is
back.
simply to alleviate anxiety,
Mhm.
then what is that about? And is it because I've had a hell of a week? My mother's in hospice, and my father broke his hip, and my son went to the emergency room with strep throat. And I
Oh,
like, it's like
what
a
a week.
horrible week, right?
That's a week.
Like
That's hard.
apparently everyone in my family has health issues. I don't know. I'm making this up as I
Yeah,
go,
please.
but apparently I put everybody in the
Yeah, I was gonna
hospital.
say I don't want to be any member of your
All you
family.
psychodynamic therapists out there listening, shh,
Yeah, really.
don't
So,
comment.
but here's the you are correct in looking at the totality of the picture. But what I want to go back
Yeah,
to the premise of this whole bit.
yeah.
Um, the
As
segment you
opposed to
could
wandering down the path and massaging
right.
facts like I did.
But going back to the whole premise here, if you're getting ready, let's say for a work gathering, it's quite possible that of the 38 people who are going to be there, that like 32 of them are sitting at home going,
Yeah.
oh, like I know I should go. I don't want, and for one reason or another, thinking about not going or thinking about how they're worried about it or they don't like the people, or maybe and maybe it's half. I don't know, but there's some number of people who are in that boat with you also sort of not wanting to go and feeling anxious about it for one reason or another. And that's the part I think that Michael's bringing to us to normalize that you're not the only one in that group of 38 going to meet at the local, whatever that is sitting in your house getting ready beforehand, going, oh God, I don't know how this is going to go tonight. So like that's the part to normalize.
I agree. And I think that's as normal as someone being, excited or looking forward to those kinds of meetings. I just think we are all built a little bit different.
Right.
Yeah, Gail, I almost jumped in when you were describing your family situation there. It was kind of making me nervous. It reminded me of when I was teaching and the end of the semester would come around. There were so many dead grandmas. You really had to watch out all of a sudden. But
Yeah, it was terrible season for grandmas. I remember that.
anyway, so what I'm hearing is like that pre-planned dread does not automatically mean you're flaky.
Correct.
And that relief after canceling isn't necessarily proof that you've made the best call either, though, right?
Right.
That like sometimes you have to get over that initial reluctance to go curling to get the enjoyment, and then although I would say there's always good times with that. So okay,
Yeah.
well,
No,
thank you.
I think that's really well stated, and that is the question. Because and I like what you said there about when you choose not to go, you will experience an immediate drop off of
Yeah.
anxiety. And if your reasoning is social anxiety based, that becomes rewarding in and unto itself and increases the probability that you'll avoid in the future in a way that is not productive. Which is why we really need to assess, is this avoidance due to social anxiety, or is this avoidance due to I just have had too much going on this week and this would be too much for me. I don't have the energy left in my tank. And it's sometimes hard to figure out which one of those two things it is.
Great. Well, thank you for helping me unpack whether I'm crazy or not. I mean, they
I
or
mean,
someone or
Asking for
whoever.
a friend.
we're aware. Gail, my current caseload is mostly men and to some degree couples, and so many of them talk about being raised to say, "I got this," like like walk it off, rub a little dirt in it, and it's a real struggle for them to connect with those emotions.
Well, very much. I mean, we put people in boxes all the time. And the box that men seem to get really stuck in is handle it.
Good therapy, you have to talk about your feelings frequently, or talk about what's going on in your life, and that it feels really vulnerable, and it's a challenge.
Right. But I think where we can really run with that challenge are these tools. We don't just
Hmm.
talk about emotions for the sake of being touchy-feely puddles of
Hmm.
emotion, right? We are
Right.
really trying to help people find tools, successful pathways, and, apply those to the real life things that are going on for these guys.
Exactly, and I think a lot of people, and especially men, quite frankly, think of therapy as just a place to talk about problems, and not necessarily a place where they're going to identify solutions and develop the tools necessary to engage in those solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. And you do a beautiful job with working on these men's issues and
Oh,
striking that balance of being sort of emotional, but also tools and deliverable kind of focused. So
yeah.
if you are out there looking for help, I would really encourage you to reach out to my colleague and business partner, Dr. Daniel Kessler at Veritas Psychology Partners. That's veritaspp.com.
Hey, thanks for the shout out, Gail.
Thanks for joining us again for the meat of our episode, the Am I the Asshole, which I think, is probably what most people come from, but I'd be curious to hear from our listeners what your favorite segments are. Send it to our mailbag and all that good stuff. We love hearing that information from you. Are you guys up for one today? I should have asked you, I guess, first, but
It's the main meal.
sometimes you just want dessert, though, so I didn't want to assume.
Ooh,
All right, this is what I got for you today. Am I the asshole for refusing to pay for birthday presents for my son that he can only use at my ex-wife's place?
What?
What?
Yes, probably.
Maybe.
Can explain more.
This is what I got. 50 something dad. I've been separated from my ex for about 18 months, and while we've kept things mostly amicable for our two kids, our son's 15th birthday has sparked a real point of contention. I currently live in our own family home, paying the mortgage and doing renovations solo, while she lives in a nearby rental on the beach and works part time. She's recently asked if we could split a $1,000 bill for a high end gaming chair and basketball hoop to be kept exclusively at her house. I feel like I'm being asked to furnish her home under the guise of a gift, especially since I already have those exact same setup at my house for him. My fear is that I'm being petty or selfish, but I'd rather spend that money on something that he can use at both homes, like fishing gear or a shared experience. Am I being petty and selfish? Am I the asshole?
Huh.
I don't have an immediate, I could see arguments both ways on this one. I really could. Um, these gifts are clearly, I mean, maybe his ex-wife would use a gaming chair and the basketball hoop when the son's not there, but I doubt it. So, I mean, they are gifts for him in this location, and at the same time, that's for many couples not the paradigm. And I'm curious what their paradigm has been over 18 months for gift giving for their son or their children.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with I am not particularly troubled by him saying no, simply because when you give a gift, it's something that you're choosing to give and you want to share, you want to be enthusiastic about it. Of course, as parents, we want to give our children the gifts that they want. But he already gave that gift, it sounds like, that it already exists at his house. I think you have the right to say no for, and this is more or less paraphrasing a Dan Kesslerism, for any reason or no reason at all, right? I don't think that is is about being an asshole, but I do think intention matters. And so this is where I'm struggling, I think, like you do, which is, am I doing this just to be like, fuck you and spite her? Then yeah, maybe you're being an asshole because your intention is assholic, as it were. But
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think that is what his described intention is. His described intention is like, well, I mean, while I don't want to furnish this, I already bought it. And so I think he's also feeling not compelled. I think it would be different for me if he was like, no, and he doesn't have that exact same setup at home. Then I feel like you're
Mm-hmm.
just, shorting the kid here and get the kid out of the middle of your pettiness.
Yeah.
But given that he's got it at his home, I find this less problematic.
I, I think of this potentially as one of those situations where you would be fine to say, "Oh yeah, I'll kick in $500 for
Mhm.
this," if it was something that you could afford and felt was valuable to your son and thought was a reasonable purchase and within the range of gifts you usually get. It's a little high for my family gift, but okay.
Yeah.
And I could also see him being completely legit and saying, "I'd rather not."
Mhm.
Um, I think he's I think he's fine with either decision. Like I don't necessarily think he's an asshole for saying I'd rather not. So I
I think we're both having a hard time getting terribly exercised about this
yeah,
decision that he is making.
yeah.
Um,
I mean,
and
yeah, do if you want to, don't do it if you don't want to. I
and
mean,
Michael, did he say why he all of a sudden is worrying he's an asshole? Does he get feedback from somewhere other than maybe some pushback from his ex-wife?
No, I mean, he kind of, he explains that like his gut reaction is, I don't want to pay for this thing that he's not going to use in my space. So like he recognizes, I think, that level of selfishness, and the internet and did the finessing the facts thing that you guys often do, which is, oh, okay, let's
Oh,
forget that it was a basketball hoop and a gaming chair. What if it was just an experience? Like, what if the mom wanted to take the kid out to do something independent of the father, but asked for money to help make that experience as a gift for the child? Like,
huh.
I want to take him skydiving. I can't afford it. Will you split it with me? It's an experience for the kid, but I'm doing it with him. You're not.
I
well,
again,
oh, sorry, Dan.
no, 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 no. Go ahead.
I just would have issue if she's going to go skydiving with him versus, send him skydiving. But if you're going to
Yeah.
send him skydiving, then you go and, I don't know, spectate, watch. I don't know. Like
Yeah, I'm okay. Here's the thing. I'm okay with the ask. Like, hey, I want to drive out to whatever skydiving location, and he's going to go up in the up and I'm going to take pictures when he lands, and it's super expensive. I'd love to do this for him. Would you be willing to kick in? I'm fine with her asking that.
Mhm,
I'm also fine with him saying sure, and I'm fine with him saying no thanks.
mhm.
Again, as you mentioned, for any reason or no reason at all, because
Yeah.
like we get to choose what to do, and she can choose a different gift if she would like. He could, I struggle with, as you mentioned earlier, Gail, getting exercised about this
Yeah.
and finding like I don't think asking is makes her an asshole, and I don't think declining makes him an asshole. And the question is what happens next? Do they then get really angry with each other? How dare she ask me for this thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're being kind of a dick. You're like, how dare he decline me when this thing is for our son? Like,
Well, and I want to see more of the pattern. You can't take a gaming chair and a basketball hoop back and forth. So this is going to
sure.
live at one place or another.
Yeah,
But what about, I don't know, the basketball or clothing for this child, or I don't know, something else physical that's transportable? If
hmm.
we are, now saying, well, I bought this for you and it can't go to your mom's house, then yeah, I have a problem with it. You're being a dick. But
If they bought a Nintendo, if you bought him a Nintendo Switch
right,
and said you
right.
can only play the Nintendo Switch at my house, even though it's a travel gaming system.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. Then I would say
yeah,
you're being a dick. Or I bought that clothing and that hoodie, was really expensive. You're gonna have to take that off before you go to your mom's and leave it here. Like I would have a problem with that.
sure.
But I don't think this is it. We're talking about something that is large, it doesn't transport well, and it's a duplicate of something that this person has at his other home where he spends
Hmm.
50% of the time. Hi, Michael, are we missing anything?
No, I mean it's interesting just hearing your take on it. I guess when just thinking about navigating presence, I guess in a divorce situation like this, I think especially in the thread. First of all, it's just as somebody who didn't have divorced parents, it's not something I had spent any time really thinking about. So it's just interesting kind of falling down this rabbit hole of like, oh, I hadn't thought about these dynamics. This is really interesting. And so many of the people on the internet weighed in about similar scenarios where it was
Hmm.
like the dad bought a VCR, but the VCR was just at this
Wait,
space. And this was in the
hold on.
80s. It was in the 80s. Like,
The dad bought a VCR?
no,
Like,
no, these are people on the internet
oh, people
weighing
talking
in
about
on
when
things.
I was a
Yeah,
kid,
yes,
my
right.
dad.
Which in the
Okay.
80s, a VCR was a big deal and it was
Oh,
expensive, right?
I
So like,
remember. It was a huge deal in the 80s.
but it was almost like the parents were vying to make their space the most desirable place for the
Yeah,
kid to be. And so I think the internet was kind of extrapolating those stories and putting it on the situation, which
sure.
by the dad's admission is part of his motivation. He's kind of saying like, I mean, yeah, it's duplication for sure, but I don't know that I want to give gifts that are only usable at my ex-wife's house, which is,
Mm,
I don't
I,
know.
I
I'm
don't read it that way.
no, I
Okay.
don't read it that way at all. I read it more like I bought him a hoop and he plays ball here. His mom wants to buy him a hoop. I just
Mhm.
it is like she and I see the discrepancy there. The ex-wife, the mom is seeing the hoop as something that belongs to the son that gives him great enjoyment, and I want him to have the enjoyment here. And since it's something for him, it's something we should both be paying for. And the dad sees it as a part of her home. And I don't, if you need a new kitchen table, even though my son eats at it, I'm not buying a new kitchen table for you because this is part of your home. And each one of them, I think, in their own way, is correct. And this happens, again, we see this so often where
Mhm.
there
Yeah.
there's not necessarily someone who is wrong. They take this from a different perspective. And I can see mom's perspective on this, and I can see dad's perspective on this.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're doing well as exes, they're able to assume positive intent for each other, even though they're no longer married.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
and it doesn't sound like the ex-wife is the one getting upset about this, going, "How dare you, whatever." He's just sort of second guessing this sort of pettyish worry feeling. I feel like this is kind of equivalent to social anxiety. Did I say something last night
yeah,
that came off poorly or badly, and then you get kind of ruminating on that and fixated, and then all of a sudden in your head you did or said something terrible, and this is why the person didn't
right.
text you back or something like that. Like, I don't think that this is problematic. I think he's well within his rights to say,
Mhm.
no, I don't want to contribute something to my ex-wife's home
Yeah,
that can't come here. I don't want to buy something I
right.
can't directly watch my child enjoy, even though I can watch them play basketball at a hoop
Mhm.
outside my window. Like, fine, I don't care. I don't think he's being an asshole. I
Mhm.
don't think the ex-wife is an asshole.
And if we're going to assume positive intent further,
Mhm.
the fact that someone is saying, am I doing the right thing here? Like, am I
Mhm.
making the right choice? Am I being a dick? Like, that's the kind of thing that, I work with a lot of men in relationships, and that's frequently the one element of treatment is just like, let's pause and think about how this is impacting other people. And the ability to say, let's pause and think about how this is impacting other people in my life is part of that recognition of the need for change. So,
Mhm.
I mean, if anything, like what I'm hearing is a really positive effort on his part to try to be a good parent and try to be a good co-parent. Now, I
Mhm.
could be wildly inaccurate here. He could just be a
Sure.
total asshole who's like, I'm not gonna, all sorts of things. But again, if we're going to assume positive intent here, which we try to do, it seems like a pretty good choice on his part to be asking.
The internet kind of agrees with you guys. I mean, for the most
That
part,
Don't be
scares
the
me.
first
Whenever
time they're
whenever the
wrong.
internet agrees, I'm like, oh shit. Like we must have said
What do we
something wrong.
miss?
the vast majority said you're not the asshole, and then said like you don't need to invest in your wife's space. We gifts, when you split a gift like that, it is for the child and not for the other person necessarily. And a lot of people took a very financial um, justice kind of approach and said, are you paying your child support? Are you providing for your son? Are you doing all these things? Then like this gift with your wife, it's up to you what you want to do with it. Like, on paper, you're doing a good job kind of thing. There were a small fraction that said there are no assholes here, and essentially what you guys said, which is like I can kind of see both sides. The ex-wife saying our son enjoys basketball and it sucks that I don't have a hoop. Like I would love to give him that here at this space. Exactly. So um,
She
yeah.
could also give him a hoop or a gaming chair.
Right?
Well,
Good
and
point.
then
I mean, both of those are fairly expensive gifts.
Right.
Having
Choose one, and then
having
the next time
briefly
choose the other.
looked at a gaming chair, like those are spendy,
Hmm.
and basketball hoops, a nice one is all. Those are also fairly spendy, and I like if she could only afford half of the gift, she could buy him a nice basketball hoop or buy him a
Hmm.
nice gaming chair, and
And I understand the urge to want to make the house a bit more
yes,
equivalent, because I
yes,
am sure it hurts her to know that he loves going over there because of these two things, if they're the big draw.
right.
I, there was there was a follow up from the OP, which
Excellent.
Oh,
was
Love that.
kind of, I don't know. It was interestingly revealing in a different way, which was he ended up talking to his son about it and before the birthday, and the son really had not asked for a basketball hoop or a gaming setup at his mom's house. Like that wasn't even on his radar. He actually wanted a shared experience instead.
hmm.
And so that's what they ended up actually coming together and kind of pooling their money and doing a shared experience where both parents were present to witness the experience. But it was interesting that the the ex-wife in this case had, I think, just thought this was something the child would like without actually asking if it
So
was something.
we were right to assume positive intent.
Yeah.
And it sounds like this couple worked it out exactly the way they should work it out. He did a
And
little poke,
beautiful.
and it sounds like he did a little questioning of his son in a way that wasn't like, "Your mom wants to buy you this," but say, "Hey, son, what would you like?"
Which is perfect. Mom doesn't
And
need
then
to go
went
into the
back to his
bus.
ex-wife and said, "Hey, Johnny would like to do this. I'm willing to
Mhm.
chip." And then they go, what? Like this is far too healthy for the internet. Like this is kind of the way you'd want people to work things out as exes. Let's talk about how to make a great birthday for him and give him what he wants.
And I think what they did so nicely here is you begin to recognize, and I tell this to people often when I see them and they're really struggling around staying in the marriage. And often the guilt factor hit here is if you leave, you're going to break up our family. And
Hmm.
what this group has done is shown that the family is still intact. We're still
Hmm.
family. What you're
Right.
doing is you're ending a marriage. This couple
Yeah.
ended their romantic relationship. They did not end their family, and this is a great demonstration of how you can continue to be family.
Yeah. Wonderful. Wonderful. No, what a breath of fresh air for this morning. No,
We needed that
a,
for
a
the
couple
first
that
day of,
a couple that handled things well
right?
and properly and gave it put sounds like both of them put good thought into things and work stuff out with a conversation, as we always say is a great idea to do. It's assuming positive intent. Love it.
And I kind of love how his post and title were not written in a way to be suggestive of the response that he wanted. Like
Mm.
it felt like a fairly fair, objective
I
depiction of
felt a
the
little
results.
pulled initially to like, oh no, but okay.
Fair
Mhm.
enough.
Uh,
Well, thank you both for weighing in. And the internet's not always a cesspool of hatred and argumentation, I suppose, right? There's a little shining light here and there. But tune in next week. We'll see what comes our way then.
Dan, when we started this private practice, one of the things that I really saw a need for was supporting women in a really unique kind of way. What we're coming to realize is as women, we are drained, we are tired, and we have been given this idea that we have to hold it all together all of the time: work, family, aging parents, all of it.
Yeah, I hear from women so often that they're the CEO of the household, they're the emotions department, they're HR, and they're carrying so much of the mental load for the family, and they're feeling a bit overwhelmed.
Absolutely. And they do this job that feels absolutely thankless. It goes unrecognized, that idea of, sort of invisible labor, and no one else is going to do it. So I got it. And they don't let themselves rest.
And I know you've specialized in working with women in that situation. So, if you're looking for some assistance in that area, Dr. Gail McBride at veritaspp.com may be your solution.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, I'd love to help.
All right, Dan and Gail, I come to you with a leadership lie that I want you to unpack and talk about. So,
Okay.
in my mind, these leadership lies are the things that people in leadership tell themselves, or maybe just in business in general, they assume to be true. So,
Okay.
this one is if we all agree quickly, we must be aligned. And
Hmm.
whether or not that is true, what are the problems with assuming that alignment quickly means consensus and that we're all on the same page?
Well, this isn't just a lie in leadership. I mean, I think this can be a mistake we make socially very easily. Just because we agree quickly does not necessarily mean full alignment. One, it can mean that we really haven't given it due to research or think with any depth. And so we've come to an agreement based on something very superficial very quickly. We know that there can be some sort of pressure effect if others are very quickly in favor of something and someone is even hesitating. They can worry about the perception of their hesitation. And while that hesitation may save you, I don't know, let's say from the Bay of Pigs, um, you may go ahead and acquiesce just simply because of that peer pressure of feeling like you need to, you need to vote in that I direction or whatever, nay, because that's what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, and Gail, you make a reference there to a very famous sort of historical event where it was figured out that essentially groupthink and a desire to go along with a powerful leader caused a fiasco
Yes.
that caused many deaths. And what I've been on boards of directors before for and a board of trustees, whichever, a nonprofit thing, and one of the things you sometimes find is this pressure to have everyone kind of agree. And I think our best decisions come when they're not full agreement and when people have a vigorous debate about things.
Right.
And part of the response to the Bay of Pigs fiasco was to create a new structure within that presidential administration where people were specifically assigned to, like, no, argue back.
Right. Team of
Um,
rivals. I
yes, and
need
that
you to disagree with me and create dissent.
right. So that what we know is that when we create dissent and argument, we get better, stronger, healthier decisions and decisions that are less likely to be extreme. So we want that vigorous debate because that's how we get to our best place. And if we're always agreeing, that's probably not a good thing
Yeah, no,
for
I
a
would
structure.
agree. And I think, there may be some very strong cultural components here. I was talking with a friend of mine who works for a company that is not headquartered in the United States. And she was talking about the speed with which the company makes decisions and changes directions. And it is much, much, much slower
Mhm.
than an American-based company because of the way they want to vet and examine the different options. Now, there are detriments there as well because we can get caught in lots of motion around consideration and that kind of thing and fail to act in a timely manner, which is also a downside, right? So we do have to hold these things in balance, whether you get speed or accuracy or it's a blend of both.
Right, right, and I think that's it's really useful to do a deeper dive and really try to understand within the corporate structure we're talking about. Are you fostering the right amount of conflict and disagreement,
Mhm.
not so that you make good, healthy decisions, but also not so much you get stuck in the weeds. So finding that balance can be really challenging. And that is absolutely a lie that if we're, I think not, and I would absolutely a false statement to say that we should, with it, that agreement is that total agreement is good.
Yes, and I think there's always a measure of degree or context with it, but I would also just throw down that caution of quick agreement does not mean we're moving in the right direction.
Mhm.
Um, I think at a leadership level, there should be some pause or cause for concern if you have an entire room who votes in the same direction very quickly. I would maybe even encourage you to table it and ask people to give some time before entering that final judgment into whatever said record and return to it. Allow for that space for dissent to develop, even if the room is agreeing with your especially if the room is agreeing with your particular position. It's really tempting to take that and run with it. But it should give you your spidey sense a little bit of a tingle.
I
Yes.
like it. Thank you. So give time for dissent to surface, I guess, and
I would
maybe
say
ask
more than
some
that.
questions.
No,
Encourage.
encourage. Yes, I was
Encourage
gonna.
dissent.
You jumped me on that one. That's exactly
Sorry.
right.
Yeah.
No, 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 no. You. I am not the most rapid thinker, but that's exactly it. I was gonna say the exact same thing. Like, not wait for it to occur, but encourage to occur. So,
Yes.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah, excellent.
Thanks. So, what ties all these together? A lot of what looks simple is actually carrying hidden effort. Social planning is not about whether you want to go. It's about the anticipation, the logistics, the energy, and emotional cost of committing. Sometimes people are not flaky. They're overloaded before the event even starts. The gift conflict shows how fast fairness becomes emotional math. On paper, it's about splitting a cost. In reality, it's about households, boundaries, history, and whether a request feels collaborative or presumptive. Those are not small differences. And in teams, quick agreement can be one of the least reassuring signs in the room. When nobody raises a concern, that can mean alignment. It can also mean people do not feel safe enough, clear enough, or invested enough to say what they really think. If there's one takeaway from today, it's this: ease is not the same thing as health. Sometimes the smoothest moment is the one hiding the most unspoken tension. I'm Michael. This is Veritas Views. Thanks for spending time with us.
You can follow Dr. Dan Kessler at Dr. Dan Kessler and Dr. Gail McBride at Dr. G. McBride. Oh, and you can find them both at veritaspp.com. We love hearing from you, so please review us on Apple, Spotify, or, well, wherever you're listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please review, like, and follow. Also, give it a share. This helps us reach more listeners. Credits: Tickling the Ivories, Matthew Reddington. Art, production, and design, bringing this show together with flair and finesse, Michelle Love. Recording and editing, turning chaos into something worth sharing, Michael McBride. Intro, outro, I'm Kelly Buttrick, a VO talent who just happens to be Dr. McBride's cousin. Cats, CJ, Linus, Sadie, and Griffin. Hosting by whomever lost the coin flip. Interruptions by all their children. The content of this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Listening to this podcast does not constitute a therapist-client relationship. If you believe you may be experiencing a mental health issue, please seek the assistance of a qualified mental health professional. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, you can call or text 988 from anywhere in the U.S. to be connected to Crisis Mental Health Services.